powers that be may want you to believe there's no inflation, but one look at the prices being quoted to United and you know it's happening. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot, hello, and welcome to another edition of the Arsenal Vision podcast. It is a pleasure to have you here. We love you so, so much. Yes, Manchester United shopping. Literally, they walk in the store and all the digital price things go up 25%. You know how like sometimes at the stores they have the digital pricing instead of like a physical price on the product? Manchester United walk in and like, put up the prices. And that seems to be what's happening to them. So it's all very funny. A couple of things. We did a really well-received podcast for a change over on Patreon yesterday with the man who hosts That Cov Pod, a Coventry. Why am I saying it like that? Because naturally my mouth wants to say Coventry. But let me tell you, people have respectfully and quietly said to me, Elliot, it's Coventry. They have not respectfully or quietly said it. They quite forcefully told me it's Coventry, just like they told me that Will Wright is from Salford, not Salford. But having said that, we did a bit on Gyoke from the Coventry perspective, and I thought it was really, really interesting. Covered a lot of unique angles to the player that I don't think have been publicly discussed. So that was a lot of fun. And you can get that over there. There's a Transfer Daily over there. We've, of course, done our scouting videos. Friday Night Clive is coming tomorrow. Tim did a great history pod on Arsenal during World War II, which is cool. And it's unique because there's never been any content about World War II ever made before. So I think it's the first bit of World War II content, period. So that puts us in a pretty unique bracket of content creators there. Anyway, we'd love to have you there. AVP50 is the new code to get the 50% off the first month. And also, I will be in Singapore along with Andrew, and I believe James is going to be out there as well. So we're working on ways to meet people, but hoping to meet a whole new group of people that we've maybe never met before. I think it's always worth trying to take the opportunity to get out to regions that I wouldn't otherwise have the chance to be and meet great new people. And that's something we're always going to try to do. And so I'm thrilled to do it. And if you're out there and you want to get in touch and get connected, we're looking for ways to do that. So look forward to doing that and hopefully having some unique perspectives on preseason. Because as you know, according to Paul, preseason is more important than the actual season. So here to defend that perspective is Paul. Hello, Paul.
Woohoo! Preseason is the real season.
Oh.
I had pictures of the US debt clock, you know that thing, that website with the US debt? Yeah. I think we should do something funny with that in Manchester United as it goes up to the trillions and their players.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Swiss Ramble, who does all that great financial analysis, he took a page out of Scott's book, and I think Scott actually helped him with this, and he's now doing radars for club finances. You know those radar visualizations? Manchester United's like where debt is on the radar. It's like you can barely see it.
You should do a dynamic GIF where it's expanding as you're watching it.
Yeah, literally expanding as you watch. And the man who also thinks preseason is more important than anything, Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello. Totally concur with Paul. You learn the most in preseason. You know, I tell you, you do. Yeah. You really do. You know, but you just need to be watching.
That's why we've booted
Elliot.
Tim off the pod, because at one point in time, Tim thought it should be illegal to even broadcast preseason games. That's how irrelevant he thought they were.
I think he changed
to be fair to Tim,
Yeah, I think he changed.
Well, you have to remember, too, once upon a time, we were playing the Bavarian Farmers 11 in the German countryside, right? And it is questionable whether there was a lot to be learned from that. But when you're playing real games against real teams and you have new players betting in, I think there is a lot to learn. We'll touch on preseason in a bit, but it would be silly for the hashtag numbers not to do some transfer stuff at the top. And so I'll just quickly touch on this with you, Clive. As we sit here today, it appears Gyokeres is going to happen. I mean, is there anything more definitive than CNN Portugal posting pictures of him packing up his house? I think that tells you all you need to know. We're in that stage of transfer nonsense. But any thoughts on this just lingering a little bit and Sporting maybe playing hardball with the add-ons? Do you have any concerns or anything you want to add about the status of this transfer?
Yeah, what can you do? You can have concerns. It's not done. And people are flying off at the weekend to Asia. But if you have to send another plane a day later, then you send another plane a day later. The most important thing, he's not signed for 5 minutes, he's signed for 4 or 5 years, right? So you do your work, you do your due diligence, you make sure things are done properly, then you get them over there, right? So most importantly, Elliot, you have a signing on video that we all watch a million times, and then say, I knew it was going to happen, what a good player, I never doubted it, blah, 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 because we all want to be right, don't we? So So yeah, that's the bit I'm looking forward to. I think it's been quite interesting actually watching people, including myself, arrive at, a thought process around the play. I think it's actually quite good. Obviously, the Nwaneri stuff got a bit heavy where it didn't really need to be. And once you have a look at the player, you can understand it. And Gyokeres, I do think, again, I think all of us have sort of said it would be nice. I wasn't really too bothered, including Ollie Watkins, if you know what I mean. But then you look a bit deeper into the player, and actually, maybe we need this type of player. I think having people that transmit a certain thing in attacking spaces, I think is really important. I think it's important to the watching public, sitting there watching the team. We want to see change. When you have somebody that comes along and really emphasises certain attacking characteristics that we don't have, I'm up for that. I'm up for seeing how it settles in, and so yeah, I do think some of the identity of some of the players that we're looking at are really going to have a fundamental change in how we view the team. And that's what's really exciting about this next season.
Yeah, well, I think, know which striker we're bringing in, but Paul, other clubs are still trying to figure that out, and it does appear that there could be a move maybe involving Isak or maybe involving Ekitike, and Newcastle and Liverpool certainly seem to be in a bit of a battle there. I think they both kind of were interested in Ekitike, and maybe Liverpool used a shadow offer for Isak to get Newcastle to back off from Ekitike. Now it looks like Liverpool are moving closer to Ekitike being the one. Do you have any thoughts on that and Liverpool's movements this summer in the window? It appears that they're going to spend an awful lot of money replacing two fullbacks, obviously buying the most expensive player of the window, at least so far, and it looks like probably the whole summer in Wirtz, and now going for what will be probably an 80 million euro-ish striker in Hugo Ekitike, who was one of the top performers in the Bundesliga. So they're betting big on the Bundesliga for their attack. What do you think of that situation?
Well, I don't think Liverpool, as a latent Liverpool supporter, I don't think they should do this Isak move. I think it's going to get in the way of Darwin Nunez's development.
I'm always here for a Darwin Remontada, by the way.
Yeah.
That's just who I am. I can't quit him.
I would strongly caution. It looks good on paper, but I would strongly caution against it. They're using, fair play to them. They are using their positioning, leveraging what they achieved last year. And again, fair play to them. I think, I don't know what everybody else's perspective is, but I get the sense that we recognize similarities between how Liverpool are and how they try to be, and how we are and how we try to be. And overall, it's a net positive, right? More Liverpools and Arsenals, less Manchester Cities and Chelseas. Probably more Manchester Uniteds too, because they make for great opponents. But so there's a part of me that's like, yeah, that makes sense. And if I'm Isak, that makes sense. And if I'm Newcastle and he's signaling that, he's not going to sign a new deal, and that this is where, and they can cash in on it, and they can get the money, and maybe they do the Ekitike goal move for a somewhat similar profile guy. Makes sense for a lot of other clubs to do that move. We've got our guy, right? We have settled on our guy. Maybe we knew Isak was never going to be sold to us, and maybe that was not the move he ever wanted. And so at the end of the day, you do the things that are right for your club. I feel like I'm going to go into Clive mode now. You focus on yourselves, right? If you maximize everything you can do, if you put what we did 2 seasons ago in terms of our chance creation, all the things we did there, with a in-your-face physical striker who gives you options like Gyokeres, and you maximize your side of it, that's all we can do.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really important point, which is this is the time of year when there's no football, but there are transfers. And so people tend to evaluate who's best by who's winning the window, so to speak, whose business they like most. But then when the season starts, what matters is who's got the most complete squad with the right balance of talents and capabilities and qualities and the right tactical setup to go win the most games. And I don't necessarily believe that as of this moment, I am fully satisfied with the work we've done, But I also think we went into this summer when fit already having a very good squad that showed it could get to 89 points. So we'll come on to other aspects of that in a moment, but I want to stay with you, Clive, on the Liverpool component of this. I will confess, I was a little worried that Isak could go to Liverpool. And I think that would have been a bit disheartening, candidly. I think getting Wirtz and Isak in the same summer and having Salah there, it's just a lot of firepower. And even if I still think we could beat Liverpool head-to-head, because I think we may be the more complete team in all phases, I just think that's an attack that's going to get a lot of goals and turn a lot of draws to wins and accumulate a lot of points. With Ekitike, it's a slightly different story. I rate the player very highly, but he is still a developing player and a player who struggled with his finishing and sort of some of his shot fundamentals. So if it's not going to be Isak, but it is going to be Ekitike, what do you make of Liverpool's business and how they're building their project for the future?
Yeah, obviously Liverpool had some terribly sad news. So whatever we're looking at is in the context of that and how their club will recover from that. You look at the ages of some of their forwards, Diaz, Salah, obviously. Gakpo, I think he's 26. I think he's probably the youngest one. They can afford to carry somebody younger and develop them, particularly while Salah's there doing his stuff, so they can play him off the left, they can play him centre forward. And I think it's a very, very smart move. And I think it suits them. This is not new. This is not a new rumour. Liverpool circles, this has been one of their top targets since the start of the year. I think they're cleverly positioning themselves for Isak maybe next summer. Or the moment when Salah decides, Saudi Arabia, for me, thank you very much, £1 million a week. Right? So when that happens, then Liverpool can do their work. So I think it's very smart manoeuvring from their point of view. And I think it fits. Sorry, excuse me. I think it really fits. I think a number of the signings this summer really fit. I really like Anthony Elanga for Newcastle, the way they play, transition, high sprint. I like it, and I think it looks good. And I feel the same about Gyokeres. We've got quite youngish forwards, shall we say. We can afford to carry somebody who's just turned 27 that brings everything right now because we're looking to change our identity. So I think it fits. I really do. I think for many people, Ekitike is more an Arsenal-style forward, very graceful, moves well, quite multi-positional. He's very, very light as he moves around, but he's very easy on the eye. I'm just not sure we need that at the moment. I'm not saying. Trust me, I like the player. I watched both legs against Spurs. First leg, he stuck it in the bottom corner. I thought, oh my goodness, he really is as good as my YouTubes tell me. Second leg, I couldn't find him, mate.
Yeah,
couldn't
he
find
wasn't
him.
in that game. Yep.
And I watched it in its entirety, and I wanted him to score. Trust me, I was looking at him, hoping he would do the job because I knew once Spurs got past Frankfurt, they had a really good chance to go and win the whole thing, which they did. Right, so they got their shortcut. So I was really looking at him with a supporter's eye, and he couldn't do it. Without knowing how Frankfurt play every single week, I'm not sure of his support he had. So yeah, but I wanted him to do the business, and he didn't. Sometimes when we talk about these players, Elliot, they do have bad games on occasions. Even Isak, I know he doesn't save his bad games for us, but I've seen many games where he does not move well, play well. So I do think it's a team game. Sometimes we get attracted to them when we see them going somewhere else. We think of their very best game or the last time they really hurt us, which he no doubt has the potential to do all of the above. But he does have bad games too. He does get injured too. And I think sometimes we have to just calm a little bit and wait to see the whole collective together. But Ekitike is a nice move for them.
Yeah.
I like that move. I'm not against seeing other people do well in the market as long as we do better.
Here's what scares me with it, right? Michael Edwards is really, really good at this. And if there's one thing that they've been good at all the way going back to getting Mohamed Salah and now with Ekitike and all the way in between is looking at the data, watching the player a bit, and just trusting, I know no one's going to like to hear this, what the spreadsheets tell you. I realize there's going to be people that are cringing their faces off hearing that, but Ekitike was the top XG plus XA player in the entire Bundesliga last season, and he's 23. He was number one. Put up numbers right up there with what, an Erling Haaland puts up, okay? He didn't finish at that rate. And if he had, he would have been a 24-goal, 12-assist type player, and you're talking Isak prices. But because his finishing was cold, you can get him. Now, again, I don't think a discount. I think you're probably paying what his profile is worth, but they are gambling that when you watch him, because he does, as Clive points out, look quite elegant and quite multifaceted in his skill set, right? Quite versatile. He has a brilliant all-around game. They're rolling the dice that this guy can find the back of the net and that shooting is variable. Now, they have a guy in their own squad that proves that's not always the case in Darwin Nunez, right?
Put the words out my mouth.
Right. And by the way, we've suffered from some of that a bit too, waiting for guys to come around as finishers, and now we're going and getting a finisher. In a way, the weird thing is I almost see Gyokeres fitting Liverpool more and Ekitike fitting us more, because Liverpool like to play basketball. They like to let teams come onto them and sprint away from them. If Mohamed Salah has a guy racing across the front of the goal or racing away, that could be just the thing for him. But I do think Liverpool are also thinking a little bit about a future without Mohamed Salah. The point is, they're rolling the dice in a big way with a lot of money on the Bundesliga. And Bundesliga attacking players sometimes work out great. Just look at Erling Haaland, for example. But sometimes you find, like with Timo Werner, who I was told was going to bang, they just don't have the space and the time, and it's a different kind of league, and the physicality and the better defending means that they can't be as effective. So we'll have to hope that's the case. I don't want to focus too much on what Liverpool is doing for obvious reasons. But I think it is just a reminder. No one's going to stand still in the Premier League. There's a lot of effing money in this league. And everybody's going to go try to make themselves better. And that means we just have to be as good as we can be and do as much business as we can do. And that leads me, Paul, to ask you about our business being done versus not being done. And I had this debate in our Discord the other day. People were saying, when Gyokeres and Mascara are done, what's this window out of 10? And at first, my instinct was it's pretty high. We got the backup defender we need. We got the backup keeper we need. We replaced our entire central midfield. We got a top striker. We got a wide player. But if you said we could only do one move this summer, other than the midfielder, Paul, I think I would have said to you the area where we can most improve our chance at winning the title is more output off the left. And I don't buy the argument that Nani Madueke is an upgrade on Martinelli off the left, at least not yet. So for me, without the left wing upgrade, I'm not sure we've done as much as we can to improve our chances. And that leads to the Eze and Rodrigo stuff. And I'm just not sure that's going to get done absent a sale like Leo or Martinelli. So what's your take on that? The need to target that area for improvement, getting more from the left wing and bringing in more talent?
Yes. You could go...
So Clive, Paul says yes.
I could be persuaded either way between striker and left winger.
Interesting.
Because the classic is, you need a striker, but you've got 24-year-old Mohamed Salah coming in. You know what? I'll probably settle for a winger. You can get goals from either place. I think either a striker or the left wing, bringing in that player there, changes both, right? If you bring in a top-level left winger and we haven't upgraded our striker options, we're going to be more dangerous, more deadly. If you bring in a striker like Gyokeres, and, off your last podcast, which seemed to be a Tim self-congratulate-a-thon. I don't know if that's such a thing, but there was definitely a 10-minute section which Tim thought was appropriate to say how Wright had been on many things.
He's actually not on the pod today because he's in bed rest from patting himself on the back too hard, and he
sprained the arm getting all the way down there. So where was I? Oh yeah. So Gyokeres, my picture of him is he tends to swing left into that pocket that Jesus would move to, but also peel in behind on the left. And that just changes the whole left-hand side, right? You can't ignore Gyokeres. He plays with the force that he's going to pull his centre-back, he's going to have the full-back looking over behind his shoulder, he's going to have the midfielders coming with him, which changes everything on the left. So I think you could have done it either way. If you told me, the striker option isn't right for this summer, okay. Everybody'd have a meltdown. But besides that, and just getting to practical terms, you had a killer left winger who scores goals, who's aggressive, who can really go at him. You could have gone either way. How do I feel about our business overall? It's weird because I think it's been really good. But if it stopped now, you'd say, well, we stopped one too few. On the other hand, if you went for Eze, it feels like we did like a half player more than you can reasonably expect a club to do. But without Eze, it would be half a player short. You can't do half players. It's illegal these days, unfortunately, the way the rules have come in. But it's like in that interesting spot where, because of the units you deal in terms of players, it feels like we're really pushing for it, which is great. If we've added, this key player in midfield, we've added a key central attacker, a right winger who can play on the left wing, a left winger through Eze who can do a little bit centrally in the left channel. That, I can't take anything away from the club, and they get players who feel like they're all ready to go, absolutely ready to hit it psychologically in terms of how they play their style. I think that would be, is it perfect? Is anything ever perfect? I think that would be really up there in terms of summers. And, when I listened to the Tim Celebrated-thon, he used the term cycle, and I like that because it feels it's 4 years ago since we bought 6 players, right? The Tommy Yasu, Ramsdale, Ben White, Odegaard. That was that summer. It's almost like economic cycles have this 4-year temp. This is going to be a big summer in terms of signings and like how things have changed, the maturity of these players, the readiness, the win now versus what it was 4 years ago. It does feel like you can't book that kind of cycle feeling, and that's why we got to go big and buy that extra player this summer.
Yeah, you said, is anything ever perfect? I'd say aside from Tim's last podcast contribution, probably no. Yeah. Clive, your thoughts on the need to add that one more piece that I would have regarded, stupidly, as maybe a priority among all of our attacking needs.
Yeah, it's we always want an extra piece of chicken. Well, I do. And 3 pieces, is it enough? Or should I go for 4?
For me, it's the extra chocolate chip cookie or the extra slice of pizza or the extra bowl of pasta.
I think this is when we start to see depth charts, don't we, in the forward areas, and we're thinking, we got Madueke and Saka, check. We got Ethan and Odegaard, check. We got Havertz and Gyokeres, check. And we got Martinelli and Trossard. Can we get an upgrade in there? Can we get an upgrade? Can we get rid of the older guy? And who scores lots of goals and lots of assists? But don't worry about that. And can we upgrade
and made our most appearances last season. Never mind
exactly.
that either.
Never got injured. Absolutely fantastic. Get rid of him. Get rid of him quick. And get in Eze because he's just turned 27 and he's a bit younger and we all love him.
And he loves us.
He loves us. And I heard Art say something which I thought was very smart. And the reason I'm going to say it, because I wish I'd have said it, because I may have said it. He sort of said, if we were to get Eze, it'll be like Ozil coming in. And I thought that was brilliant, because I do think it'd be that sort of joyous thing. There was a joy when Ozil came, because it was like we're spending some money finally. We come out of austerity and somebody that we actually knew their name. Do you know what I mean? And it was actually quite exciting, and everyone went crazy. And I think Eze would have a similar thing. I thought it was a really nice statement from Art there. So we're all doing the sums. I do think we have to upgrade the left-hand side. We have to be honest about it. We haven't been direct enough, consistent enough, dangerous enough on that side. And I do like the balance of an Eze and a Martinelli. We get the stretcher, we get the linker. We get somebody to stretch out teams, counter, and we get somebody that can pick pockets, right, and arrive in central areas and score. So the balance is really, really nice. So I'm doing the sums like everybody else and say, if we do that, I'll be really happy, despite the fact we bought 106 players. I just want one more piece of chicken. Can I just have that, please? And then I'll become fine. Never be hungry again. And so, but I do like the approach you've taken in the window so far, and that balance feels good. So I always think, Elliot, when you get off the coach, you rock up, get off the coach, and you see those level of forwards coming off the coach, man, walk into the dressing room. I'm thinking, yeah, we're going to do something today. Do you know what I mean? And that's what you want. You want the other team to see you arrive. I think, bloody hell, we got to see all them lot off, and it's going to be hard. And that's what we want. That's the fear factor we want, and I can't wait for that.
Yeah, and it's tough because if you buy outside of the Premier League, the one thing that seems pretty clear is clubs know how much money there is in the Premier League, and there aren't any discounts. You buy inside the Premier League, the clubs have money and they don't need to sell at a discount. So you've got £70 million Mbeumo, or you've got €100 million Sesko and Ekitike. There's just no discounts for Premier League clubs anywhere. So if you want to do all the business, you got to be ready to spend all the money. Paul, you had something to add to what Clive said?
Yeah, I just, you can't add to what Clive said.
There we go.
And anyway, Clive was adding to what Art said, which was really what Clive would have, and I think Clive pretty much did say.
Okay,
No,
do you want to add to what Art said?
No, I really want to do my own thing here, which is...
See, that's the thing I'd least like you to do.
What's lovely about what we're talking about here is it's all the amount of sizzle we're putting up in that front third of the pitch. Like, this is the other aspect of the toothpaste vision, right? He's built from the back. He's brought in this midfielder who has this tempo and cadence to move it from one side to the other. He'll be deceptive on the eye. He'll buy us time and space so that Odegaard can stay up the pitch, so that Saka can stay up the pitch on that side. And on the other side, what we need is players who will take players with them to create the space so that the opponent isn't pushing all the players over onto Saka and Odegaard and our strikers going over to that side, which is the way it's been for the last year or so. They just need to gum up one side to slow us down. Now you got Gyokeres, you got Eze, you got Martinelli flipping, you got, do we keep Trossard and Martinelli? Probably not. That's another discussion. But you got two very exciting players on that side that you can tag team, bring one on after 60 minutes, 70 minutes. We're going to create all sorts of challenges for teams from the other side of the pitch that is going to free up our whole attack, and everybody in the middle third and in our defensive third distributing the ball is going to be thinking, let me get the ball to the sizzle up front. We can really do something here. I think it just changes the whole team when you put that buffet of options up front to hit, to incent, to kind of give this team a direction they haven't really had in the last few years. It won't be all kind of strikers who drop into midfield to become another midfielder. There'll be games for that. But this season will be about the sizzles up front, feed them.
Yeah. One of the things that is unfortunate about the discourse during summer transfer talk is that the only way a club can get credit or anyone can feel good about the club is if they sign the exciting player. But if you fast forward past the summer to when the games are being played, suddenly it's just about what you actually have in the group. And sometimes you fast forward a couple of years to realize how good a moment was for a club. Of course, I'm talking about Ethan Nwaneri. There may be nothing we do this summer as important as keeping Ethan Nwaneri. Not necessarily for this coming season, but for the future of the club. That's how highly I regard his talent. And I might be proven wrong there. But there may be a moment 2 seasons from now where we're going, imagine if he had left in that summer of 2025.
Did that with Saka. He got close at one time.
Yeah. Yep. And, so I think, Clive, it is worth discussing that it seems very, very nearly done now. The admin on social media is posting best moments of Ethan's season. I think we're close to an announcement there. It won't get the headlines that a new signing will get. But how important do you think this is ultimately? And maybe if you want to weave into there, because I've seen some people being critical of people who reported, and I think accurately reported, that there were some concerns in this deal. Because no one wants to believe the negative thing could ever have been true, and everybody wants to believe only the positive thing could have been true. I tend to trust the reporting of a lot of good journalists who worked on this, and I believe that there were concerns about this deal. So how important is this? And, how much credit do you give the club for getting it done?
I think it's very important, and there are reporters and they're good reporters. You read James's articles on this. He's got it dead right. And that tells you there were challenges. It doesn't matter. I'd be very surprised if an agent and a player went into a meeting about signing a 4 to 5 year contract and didn't ask about their playing time and pathway. I'd be very surprised if they didn't do that. In fact, I think they were stupid if they didn't do that.
Be a very bad sign, wouldn't it? In terms of the mentality of the player.
Exactly. What do you see for me? How do you see my How do you see me going forward in the near term, in the medium term? They can't say too much about other players, etc. But they all have a pathway for that player, and that player has to decide what they want to do. We'd all want to believe, yeah, we love the club, he's just going to sign. Well, I remember when Ian Wright went to sign a contract, he said, "Where do I sign?" Didn't even look at it. Where do I sign? When he went to Arsenal, those days are over right now. You've got people turning up with analytics information on where they are against other defenders, etc., other players in their position at the same age, what they're doing. It's a scientific, intellectual game. So I'd be very surprised if we didn't try to find out where he stood, And so it's not a negative if someone says that. How they say it probably could be. It could just scare people up to get clicks. But I'd be very surprised if we didn't have that sort of issues, for example. And that's all right. And we saw it last year, Elliot, didn't we? We saw pre-season, how important pre-season was. We saw Vieira, having a dance off on that right-hand side, didn't we, in LA? And by the end of that trip, we knew who'd won. Yeah. And guess what? A few days later, one was going out on loan and the other one was in our squad. And I thought we'd be playing under 21 Champions League football. That changed in LA. Right? So that's the importance of pre-season. That can literally dictate careers. So he's quite within his right to understand with people coming back, with signings coming in, to understand where he fits. He's always been given comfort and he's signed on the dotted line. I expect those challenges for players that are one of the best 18-year-olds in the country. You'd expect there to be approaches, people trying to steal him, with 1 year to go, to try and get him not to sign, to try to steal one of our stars from us. What do you think this is? Kindergarten? This is ruthless, ruthless stuff. Right? So don't take an affront to it. Be happy that the club is well positioned now, that we don't have to even think about this anymore. We lost a couple of players to Manchester United this year, and I wonder how much that will hurt us. And particularly Aidan Heaven in particular, we didn't have the space for him. We didn't, and he's gone off and he'll be in the Manchester United first team this season, no doubt. And we got hardly any money for him. So don't think it doesn't happen the other way around. Just because this kid scores goals, we don't want him to go. Well, there are defenders just as valuable as well. So accept those challenges. And I'm really, really, I think it's very, very important to where we're heading this signing.
It's the natural next battleground in football. Young players who you don't know what you're going to get long term, but your investment risk is so much lower. Look at Will Wright, who we'll talk about in just a bit. Liverpool wanted to offer £100,000. We doubled it to £200,000. Now, I'm not saying that's not real money, and I'm not saying you can just run around doubling your offer to every youth player out there. But that's a rounding error in a bidding war for an Ekitike or an Isak. It's not even a rounding error. That's money that literally might fall out of the briefcase you're carrying to the agent's hotel room. You know what I'm saying? So this is the battleground when you can get a Cheeto or a Heaven or a Will Wright out from under another club. Or when you can get an Ethan or a Max Dowman. If you can turn their head for 50,000 extra pounds, 100,000 extra pounds, that is an investment worth making and a roll of the dice that's worth taking. And, all you have to do is look at Chelsea's strategy, which appears to be acquire as many young players as humanly possible and then just move them on at a profit. Whether they're even trying to compete to win stuff is hard to even know. And we'll talk about Chelsea as well in a moment. So, Paul, what do you think of that? The importance of Ethan staying, and I get it. No one wants to hear it. They want to know when Isak's coming or when Rodrigo's coming. But there's a chance, Eze or Rodrigo, but there's a chance that neither Eze or Rodrigo go on to be as good as Ethan could be. And I realize that's a very bullish statement I've just made, but it's really worth stopping for a moment and recognizing the importance of being able to keep your academy players at your club when they're that talented.
It is. And, you talked about the headlines and maybe this is a little under the radar, but in a parallel universe where he goes somewhere else, those headlines would be asymmetrically bad for the club.
That's a great point. Yeah, can I stop you there? I want to say that I think that's such a powerful observation, which is we won't get the credit for keeping him that matches the intensity of the outrage we'd get if we didn't. That is a really, really good point.
Yeah. Certainly. I might try and get on Tim's next self-celebrate-a-thon for that one. A short section.
Don't worry, I'll make sure that that Ghulam doesn't clip up this section and put it on the socials. unlike when I had him clip up Phil saying that.
Can't believe you did that.
Did you see that Nani Madueke could be Mohamed Salah? That they're basically the same player. Ghulam immediately clipped that up and threw that on the socials. And Phil and I had I woke up to 17 notifications in WhatsApp from Phil. I was like, oh, what's happening here? Anyway, go ahead, Paul.
Anyway, so Ethan, yeah, look, the thing about it's such a important skill that you just pray the club. You need the club to be nice and settled and non-chaotic so they can make good decisions over time. There's the reporting on how given that Andrea Berta needs to focus on the men's team at the moment, that Per's kind of purview has been expanded in terms of importance and relevance, and he's the guy who's bringing that karma across the rest of the club to make sure it progresses, makes good decisions over time, because it's a time preference thing, and we got to develop these players, and it's all part of a jigsaw, and it's so hard to judge from the outside whether it's going well or not. Because the fruits of this, if they happen a few years out. And I bring that up because even with somebody in the limelight at the moment, Ethan, he had an up and down season if you look at it last season, and that's what you get with young players. And you need a very steady, calm view of the player that goes across several seasons, not one season. And so, it was quiet at the start, then he got quite a bit of game time, looked very good early on, then seemed to fade a little bit within his game time, and then was kind of taken out of the limelight for the run-in for the rest of the season. So, whereas you look at Miles Lewis-Skelly, I mean, who knew? Is that the guy we thought was going to take the world by storm in the previous season? And when he came on, you never wanted to take him off. He was playing back-to-back games, had the A-listers been available and fit, Calafiori, they would have struggled to get any minutes against this guy. So you just don't know what who would have betted that if we'd kind of black boxed it, that it would have been Miles that would have gone, not just come in and hold a place, but get stronger and stronger and stronger game by game in a straight line. Ethan's was more up and down. There's a lot of skill and finesse to manage these players and a lot of calmness required. And the one thing I'll say about Mikel is he's never rushing to keep these guys into the spotlight. And I hope that translates into not just, hey, I want to play my stars and the guys who are 26 and 27 because I want to win now. I think it's always been the message that players have their own development curve and you need to allow that to unfold. And now we look for Ethan to build on those experiences and be strong every game, every opportunity he gets in the team this coming season. There's going to be loads of game time for him if we stick around in the competitions. And what we'll look to see from him is more linear building, like we saw with Miles Lewis-Skelly.
Yeah. Clive, last thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what is interesting, Elliot, is you are talking, and Paul's talking also. All these signings, what do they say? Right, so we are, I use the word renewal a lot, but we are really renewal. So what are we actually doing? So this year, the manager signed a contract last season. We've got a different sporting director. We potentially could bring in 6 or 7 players. Right, so we're in a real period of change. We could lose 4 or 5 players. And what that does, that buys you time, but also refocuses you on your absolutely near-term goals. But now the manager has tools and he's been backed in this next cycle. And so despite TalkSport trying to get rid of him by Christmas, the club obviously said, right, we're going again. And so all the players that are re-signing, do you think they're not asking how long the manager's going to be here? How solid is he? So we're in a new cycle. We all want the same thing. So I'm not saying we don't have to win or anything like that, but we are in a new cycle and a period of restating our stability. There's a couple more big contracts to do. If they get done and the extra signings get done, mate, we may, as supporters, have nothing to worry about or moan about apart from the very next result. That's the position I've hardly ever been in. Because I always want a little bit more. I always want another player. I always want something different to happen. But we're going to be in a situation where we have all our core people signed, new players coming in, attackers coming in, defensive cover in place, midfield cover in place, a full ground, shared goals, shared motivation to win a trophy and be remembered as players that have won for Arsenal. You know, we are really in that common ground place. Everybody's there. So rather than let anybody else pressure us, if we all want the same things and we're acting like it, we can turn that into real positivity about where we are. And they've loaded us up with an unbelievably hard start, right? So that could all be gone by 3 games. But if we stay the course, within this squad as it's developing, I think we've really got something here. I really do. If we can stay the course and stay healthy.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Will Wright briefly, very briefly, preseason, and a bit of early look at next season. The betting odds are out, the betting futures for next season. I want to just touch on the group that I think is at the top of the list for next season. But, I mean, what am I going to do? Am I going to talk about football, end the podcast, relax, maybe pour myself another cup of coffee, and then think, I could have used that time to tell the listener about brands that would be influential in their life, and I didn't do that? Am I going to let that happen? There is no way on God's green earth I'm going to let that happen. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell you how you can power your e-commerce with Shopify. And let me tell you something. If you want to start an e-commerce business, it's this simple. You need an e-commerce website. Newsflash. Okay, how are you going to do it? You're going to write code? No, you don't want to do that. Are you going to use some site that's designed to make pretty design websites but has no e-commerce engine behind it and then hope that can sell your product? No. You're going to use the absolute number one e-commerce website builder that is trusted by Fortune 500 companies that lets you build what looks like a global powerhouse e-commerce site by simply clicking on a design, loading a picture, and writing a description. And it will help people flow through your checkout process and help with shipping and help with taxes and help with, paying you out, which that's a pretty important thing too. All the things you need to do to run a business so that all you have to do is be a focused expert on your product, the thing you make that you're proud of, that you want to deliver to the world. And it'll even connect you to those social media sites where you need to be selling. Nowadays, if you're not an Instagram store and all that, you're just not selling your product effectively. So Shopify is the way to do it. Give it a try. You will see how easy it is to build something really, really beautiful and powerful. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Do now. And you hiring? You want to hire? You need to hire? I think it is in the bottom 3 experiences globally for people right now. The hiring and being hired experience. Algorithms doing this while algorithms do that, while I have a great resume and I'd be a good fit for this job, but I'm on 42 different job sites, so I can never get found. I'm trying to find the best talent, but I have to post a job on so many sites I can't even monitor it. Use Indeed. One site to control them all. Indeed is basically Lord of the Rings if that movie was about hiring. I don't think it would have done as well at the box office, though. It's just my thought. I don't know that you get a trilogy out of a movie about a website that combines all the hiring into one site. To me, and I could be wrong, maybe that there's an audience for that. Maybe it would go straight to streaming and do well on Netflix. What was I talking about? Indeed. The hiring platform, you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. It is the one ring to control them all. It is the place you post your job. It's seen everywhere. You don't have to manage multiple sites. You connect to the best applicants. That's the thing, right? A good job experience is when a great applicant is matched with the right job and vice versa, and you get the best talent. Now, when you sponsor a job post, your job jumps to the top of the page, and according to Indeed data, sponsored or data, you could say it either way. Sponsored job posts directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. How about that? There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners to this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ArsenalVision. Just go to Indeed.com/ArsenalVision right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/ArsenalVision. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Okay. Now that that's done, I would like you, Clive, to tell me everything we need to know about Will Wright in 90 seconds or less so we can move on to other stuff.
6'2", sorry, tall, leggy, forward, centre forward. I've seen 2 videos on him. Scores goals, scored 50 goals across the youth teams the last couple of years. And if I think about it from an Arsenal perspective, we've got a forward called Andre Harriman Anus, and he's our main centre forward at a youth level, but I'm not sure what's below him. And given the fact that we're in the Champions League again this year, I think adding another forward is very important for the age groups. Right, so and I do think there's still movement for us to bring players in. You know, from reading the experts out there, I think we're a bit light as a squad. You know, particularly with a number of players with the first team at the moment. We took a bit of a kick in at under 21 level at St Albans, which is quite near me, and because they just didn't have the experienced players there to match the physicality of a non-league adults team. So it's just interesting to see how we use this player. I really like the investment, Elliot, and you're absolutely right about the arms race at this level. There's players are starting to become famous before they're shaving. You know what I mean? It's really important that it's starting to happen. There's a number of players that are out there in other clubs who I now know who they are. And they're 14, 15. I'm not sure I should know, but that's what's happening out there. It's becoming an arms race, and that transparency is there. And we're competing with each other. People moving from Spurs to Man City this week. Liverpool took Chelsea's #1 academy kid a couple of years ago. They're about to offer him a new contract. He's growing now out of his boots, looks like a player. You know, it's happening all around. We've got our own star at the moment. Obviously, everyone knows. So, it's an interesting part of the market, shall we say, that we'll all become experts in, because that's what we do, without maybe understanding the intricacies of youth development. So I like this one. I really do. Yeah.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me now is I don't know that we need Gyokeres at this point with Will Wright coming in. So that might explain why the deal's dragging. It might have been dependent on what happens with Will Wright. So it's only fair. Look, he scored a lot of goals. Gyokeres scored a lot of goals. Will Wright's younger and taller. QED, he's all we need. I'm
Can
kidding.
I just mention one other name? I'm not sure if you're going to mention it. It was Olivia Smith that we signed today.
Yeah, the first £1 million signing in women's football. Yeah, you want to touch on that?
Tim's not here, I've got to bring this up. I think it's a major moment for the women's game, full stop. You know, this is she's been here 1 year. Liverpool bought for 200 grand last year. Me and Tim were talking about it on the Askcast, actually, and Tim said maybe we could have gone for her last year, maybe, but we've got quite well stocked in those wide areas, but we've had some injuries there, and now we have a gap. And I think it's a very, very significant signing because of her age, because of what she does from a sprinting and shooting point of view. We've got 11 games at the Emirates this year, big wide spaces on that pitch. I think she's going to do really, really well. I think given the fact that we just won the Champions League, we're well positioned now to sign from strength. And I'm so excited about this signing. The player that me and Tim have been talking about for months. And we sort of predicted it, and it sort of happened, you know. So that makes us, I'm just really, really pleased with this. And I can't wait to get down the Emirates to watch her play.
Well said. Okay, and I'm sure we'll hear more from Tim on that down the line as well, obviously. Okay, so, Paul, I do want to talk preseason for a minute because it is looming. I think the players fly out Saturday. I think there had been a hope that Victor Gyokeres could be on that flight. That looks less likely now, I would say. Not impossible, but a lot less likely. I don't know. Clive, do you know, is Nani Madueke going on tour? He's probably on his holiday post-Club World Cup.
I'm not sure if he's going on tour. I know Ethan has said, I'm going to go on tour, which I think is really encouraging.
Despite having played in the U21
the under-21s, yeah. And he's due another week off, but he said, I'm gonna come, which I think is brilliant. Right? Whether the club are going to accept that or not, I don't know. I don't know what Nani Madueke is doing. Given the fact he was at Wireless last weekend, maybe he does need his holiday and he wants to go. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there.
It is possible too that he could take a few extra days, fly out just to be in Hong Kong or something like that.
Yeah.
These players do have ways to get around the world. It's also the case too, by the way. These are very long haul flights. They may just decide, you know what? You've just played football. You're in pretty good shape. We don't want you flying 12 hours, 14 hours to get to Southeast Asia to play in 30-degree heat and humidity. You just keep your feet up and relax. We would rather you do that. So, it may be the case that that's what's in their best interest. But Paul, it is I think, worth asking what you're hoping to see from preseason. Because the last time we saw Arsenal in domestic competition, forgetting Champions League, it really wasn't great. We didn't focus on it because it kind of didn't matter. But Arsenal's last several months of domestic competition was kind of a mess. Injuries certainly played a role. Prioritizing Champions League played a role. But it's still the reality of what our domestic competition performance looked like during that time. So what would you like to see in preseason? It's the early part of preseason, but in this earliest stage, in the 2 games in Singapore and the game in Hong Kong, what would you like to see during this period?
Look, it's a bit like pancakes, you're making the pancakes, you got the batter, you put the first one on, you have low expectations, you probably throw it away, let the dog have a nibble on it, throw away the first pancake. That's like the first and the second game of pre-season. You just enjoy it. You want to see the lads out there having a good time, getting excited, charging the batteries for the season. By pancake number 3, I don't know who we're playing. What's our Spurs, evolution of games here?
Game.
Spurs is the game in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So it's Milan, Newcastle, and Spurs.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, there's no scrubs there in any of those games. But you bring on. I'm just reminding myself how it works. You bring on one team in the first half. All your players aren't there. It's like there's a lot of holes in the pancake in the first half and in the second half, and the same probably by the second game it's still pretty patchy. By the third game, you're putting on a strong team for one half, and then you put on, they'll be putting on their scrubs. We'll be putting on our other fine team that's not quite as good as the first team in the second half. By the fourth game, which would be Villarreal, you expect things to start getting serious. So is it a terrible answer to say not much, apart from just good vibes and players, enough new players on the, you want Gyokeres in there, that excitement, the excitement we saw when Gabriel Jesus showed up for pre-season and lit it up. You're looking for that one player who ignites it and tells everybody this is different going into the next season. Like Jesus signaled something that season and it lit us up. That was the momentum.
Yeah, I think 2 things for me. One, I think just the reminder, when we're fit, we actually still have a lot of talent. There's this sense of like our attack was totally broken and needs to be rebuilt, and a weird omission of the fact that it's because we lost all the players. So that first time we just line up in preseason, well, we arguably won't line up this way to start, but the first time we see Kai, Saka, and Martinelli on the pitch together, and you go, actually, we're pretty good. We could be very dangerous with this. The other thing, that first time Zubimendi punches a pass between the lines into the left channel, or, we create a nice pattern of play up the left-hand side that gets that side looking like it could be more fluid or work. I think that might be kind of a nice sign. Clive, what about you? Are there little bits and bobs from these first 3 games in Southeast Asia that'll be important for you to see?
Yeah, including the Villarreal and Bilbao games, which just got my tickets for and will be going to. I think so many things, Elliot. When you bring in 6 or 7 players, you're creating new units, aren't you? New groups. So you're going to want to see groups together. So it's not just about players filling in for other players. You're going to want to see Madueke and, say, Timber play together on the right-hand side. What does Madueke on the left-hand side look like? I'm not saying it's going to happen in Asia. I'm not sure he's going to go. What type of players, how does Zubimendi work with a centre forward that runs towards him versus one that runs away, right? How does Zubimendi work when he's not the single pivot, but he's got an 18-year-old next to him with biceps, or a 6'1" Italian with a headband on, flying around the midfield, doing what he likes? How's he going to cope with that? How's he going to work with that? Those sort of things. The first back four we all sort of know. We all sort of know the people in behind them. We know Kivio a lot more now, so there'll be one new defender to bring into that unit. Can he play left centre back and right centre back? How does that look? I think if we're looking at all these things, one other thing I'm looking at, mate, and it's something I did message Scott the other day, and he just hasn't even looked at my message. I don't know what I've done to upset him, but but the 14 draws, and I think it's 7 or 8 games from winning positions. I'll be looking at a different system in these games. I've been looking at a system to end games. You know, maybe it's a 5-3-2, a two-striker system, you know, to end a game, or just looking at different ways to close games out. Because I think sometimes what we do, we just play the same way and change the players. Normally put players who are not quite as good as the ones that left the pitch, and we become weaker. But can we become systemically stronger? So we manage to change in players that are coming into a game cold. I think you got to look at that. You can't look at 14 draws and not think, what could we done when we're winning positions to do something better? We're all hoping we're going to score more goals. It won't be a problem. But what if we are one goal ahead? What do you want to go to? You know, do you want to, you know, I think there are many ways we can line up. I think we finally worked out what to do with 10 men. I know the system we're going to play. And once we found it, it works really, really well. I hope we don't have to use it. But what do we do to hold on to those games when we end up with draws? I think it's something we've got to be working towards in the pre-season.
Clive, can I just stay with you for a second on something? I think Martin Odegaard's last season had some people concerned. I think sometimes the concern verged into hysteria and underrated what he was still good at. But I think sometimes the concern was warranted. This feels like an important preseason for Martin Odegaard to sort of reestablish his level. And I don't even just mean to prove to fans he's still good. I just mean to build some confidence for himself going into a season after knowing that his performance last season was not where he wanted it to be. And he was clear that that was the case. I thought we saw some signs he was coming back at the end of last season. I mean, that shot that should have gone in against PSG, you know, he was starting to hit shots with more force and accuracy towards the end of the season. So is this a pretty important period for him to just get a little bit more confident in his final third contribution heading into an important season?
Yeah, there's a story to be told to his season last year. We also speculate on what it could be, but we don't really know, right? And but we do know, and I heard the Coventry guy say this. I thought it was really nice to hear an opinion from an outsider, even though he's a Cockfosters lad, an outsider, obviously knows the club really well. And he said it clear, didn't he? Odegaard lacks a bit of power. He lost a bit of weight. He's not even an Arsenal fan, you know? And that power differential, we need that in offensive areas, right? So there's ways to be effective physically and technically in a game. Having good movement around him, he'll find you, right? I think we were very static with a centre forward last year. That was a centre mid, and we had a less sprinty Bukayo Saka looking after his hamstring before Madrid games, etc. And so the movement wasn't there for him to really show himself. But we all know himself as an individual, he was underpowered and not in the best shape. And what we had to do, we had to play him through because we really lacked the alternative. So guess what? We're going to have alternatives. There's lots of players who can play in that position. So this pre-season, mate, he'll be winning those shuttle races. He'll be doing everything. And that's what competition brings. If you want to stay in this sort of level, you've got to bring it. So I'm not worried about him. He understands elite football. And so he's going to have to bring it. And when he brings it, we won't miss it. We won't miss it.
Yeah, I think if you get an Odegaard performance more like the one we saw 2 seasons ago, a lot of the things people presume we need in the transfer market and a lot of the worries people have about our attack immediately evaporate. So let's hope that's kind of what we see. Paul, I actually think preseason might be most important for those players who want to make the manager's life miserable by giving him hard decisions to make. And this is where I think we have a fascinating preseason ahead in terms of, Clive mentioned him, Calafiori, Marino, Norgard, right? There are some players in there. I would have said Madueke at some level, but I don't know how much of him we'll see. Players who will feel, I am better than just being relegated to playing when someone's not available. I think Calafiori is immensely talented and has great chaos energy that can power up our attack. I think Christian Norgard is a player that has been one of the most important parts of a good Brentford team and isn't just going to, I think, sit there and allow himself to be a depth option. And Mikel Merino, as much as we loved what he did for us at striker, currently does not have a clear path to playing time at Arsenal Football Club. So those are 3 players in my mind that will want to make the preseason minutes they get matter to really make Mikel think about how he can deploy them. Do you agree with that framing? Do you have another player in mind, or what do you think of those 3 trying to show the manager that they belong more in his plans.
Yeah. And two more, I'd put in Havertz and White, not because they need to make any point to anybody in some regard, but they're both going to have serious competition for the spots they want to play. And in a way, as you were talking there, it's almost like the five of them as a collective need to tip the manager. It's not just individually. What they need is the manager to go into the season thinking, I've got almost 2 sets of players I could be playing here. I want to find combinations of these players that allow me to rotate. One of the problems is if you rotate one player across the season with another player, it's like that's not rotation. That's just, and you tend to fall back into patterns, so you stick with an 11. He needs to find groupings and kind of subsystems within systems. He needs to find patterns that he likes, that he thinks, oh, I'm excited about that. I want this for this kind of game or this kind of situation. So it's 5 players shifting him from thinking 1v1 rotation more into this pod together works well, that pod together works well, this is for this situation, that is for that. So preseason for those guys is big, and it's big more collectively. I don't know how they configure something in the manager's mind, but there's a point at which a manager says, and Ferguson was really good at this, right? He had a squad that was way bigger than 11 players, and he chose them judiciously for Champions League game on a Wednesday night, a Saturday. You know, these couple of players feel they're going to play at the weekend, and we need to move much further away from, hey, we got 9 or 10 players, pretty much we know who are starting, but we'll rotate one. That's not rotation. So we'll have so many options. The manager has to also step up to the challenge of rotating, thinking chess, not checkers, in terms of how we put out teams and how we rotate.
You know what's really interesting, you guys? If you think about it, this is how much football changes in a year and why you have to be careful about being too dogmatic in your beliefs, because Calafiori, take Norgard out for a minute because we obviously just signed him. Calafiori, Ben White, Kai Havertz, Mikel Merino. I think you'd be within your right to think, in August of last year, if I named those 4 and said to you, where do you think we are with them? In a year time, you'd say they're all nailed on starters, all nailed on first choice players at Arsenal. Kai's our striker, Marino's our left 8, Ben White's our right back, Calafiori's our left back. Great group, all starters. Right now, there's a chance none of them play the lion's share of minutes at their position. And in the case of Calafiori, Marino, and Ben White, I don't think it's a chance. I think it's a guarantee. I would give you any odds you want that Ben White has the second most right back minutes, Mikel Merino has almost no midfield minutes, and Calafiori has second or third most left back minutes. So things change very, very fast. Now, Kai, I could still see Kai having more minutes than Gyokeres. We don't know. But so, Clive, it is, whatever you want to say about preseason, if you're a player who wants to make a position yours or wants the manager to see you as more than a fringe player, this is your moment to show them. Because when the games matter, managers get conservative, by and large. So this is a big moment for those players, you know?
Yeah, I love what you say. I can guarantee he's going to get the second most minutes. That's because you're going off the last game that you've seen, or the last settled 11.
It's all that matters, as you know.
Yeah,
it's really all that matters.
And towards the end of the season...
The only data that's important is the last thing I watched. You know?
And Elliot's very pretty, but he's shallow. That's what I want to say.
And,
boy.
My theories, I've got many theories, but one of them is the first 11 presents itself to you really, really, particularly in winning time. It just presents itself to you. We all can pick it, but I don't pick it too early because there's different phases of the season. We only see the last game, but funny enough, they see all the pre-season medical tests, and they do all of those things. They see all the training sessions. They see who's lagging on the bleep test, etc. They see who's behind, and guess what? That's the player that doesn't play. Right? So has to have a special training program. The reason why I do love preseason is almost like you start again, and you have to come back in shape. You have to come back and re-establish yourself in the hierarchy, right? And that's what's so exciting about it. You know, it becomes new, and people are out there playing and doing their stuff. Some probably know they're playing and they're managing themselves through the preseason, make sure don't get an injury. But some are really trying to get in the manager's eye. And you can see the ones that are versus the ones that are not. And that's why rating players in pre-season, I think, is a little bit futile. But watching is massively important to see who is leveraging up against their competitive landscape. I really do think it is. It's great. I watch pre-season non-league games. I'm that much of a nerd because I want to see how managers are developing their teams and what style of play they're going to bring forward in this season. And it's the same for the first team. What's the manager focusing on? What's the key messages he wants to get across? Is he changing the style slightly? Is he going to tweak the formation slightly in different phases of the game, which I'm sure he will do? We've got more options now to do all of that stuff, so yeah, it makes it exciting.
Yeah. All right, Clive, I'll stay with you just for, Paul.
No,
Paul's
Paul's
one more
in
on
there,
that?
mate.
Yep. He's in. Get in.
Just while we're talking on this, coming back to my thesis, look, Arteta talked this season multiple times about how to play in the modern game the way it's going, the demands on the players, is it unfair? He said bigger squads, right? That's his answer for now. It may not be the perfect answer to the way the game's going, but bigger squads. And it can't just be a starting 11 and a shadow team. He's really got to lean into, you bring in, let's say you bring in Eze, you've brought in Madueke, you have Havertz, you have Gyokeres. You need to move. This is the big step up for Arteta, I believe, this season, and it'll make everything better in terms of attack, defense, the trajectory of the season peaking at the right time, learning the rotations and the combinations and the chestnut checker. It won't be one in, one out, I don't believe. I don't think we'll bring in a player, sell a player, because we can't. We need to actually, and that's the exciting thing as we look at all these additional players coming in, and why I do think it seems to be real that we're going to also look to bring in this left hand. In any other season, I'd say, we're kind of done. That's the kind of thing they float out there. Oh, it's not this player or that player, it's both players. It might actually be both players this season, or this preseason, it seems, or this transfer window this season. We've got to go up in numbers to go past 14 players he trusts to more like 18 players he trusts. And then he's got to lean into finding ways to get these players real minutes, so that nobody's doing 500 minutes or 700 minutes. They're playing real minutes. They see consistency throughout the season that they can lean into. It's a big ask for Arteta, and it's the next level he needs to step up to. And that's what I hope that my thesis plays out this season. It'll be a different way of putting a team out across the season in multiple competitions.
I like the hypothesis there. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I agree. Clive, what do you think?
I think when I look at the squad coming in, I think we're going to make a sell. Sorry, I say that. There are players that we're all looking at, right? So we're doing the ideal sums in our mind. They never work out, but let's do them anyway. So if we lose Nelson, we lose Sambi, we lose Zinchenko, and potentially lose Trossard. That's 4 players that we lose. I mean, we get half decent money for them, and we can bank it. Then I'm going to get excited for an Eze, because I think we can do it. From the wages going out the door, I think we can do it. For the contracts we have to re-sign up to give them the money they deserve into the Man City range, shall we say, for Saliba and Saka. We need to lose some. We need to lose some cash off our wage bill, right? So I like that idea. So Elliot, I've sat here many a time and said I'm not interested in the League Cup, FA Cup. I just after the big 2. Now the big 2 is what we all want. But actually, if we do have that squad, I do think the excuses for a poor show in domestic cups become harder to justify. Do you see what I mean? I think we have to show a much more serious approach, and we should have the players to do it. And so the whole winning mentality and winning trophies needs to be the number one message that goes to the players. And I'm sure that's what they all want. I'm sure they're sick of it. Having the second most points in the last 3 years in the league, but we're the one team that's not won the league title. Then I can't be sitting with them really nicely. No. Do you know what I mean? And so they're focused now, aren't they? And to be focused, they need the right level of depth around them so they can be what they need to be in the critical moments. So yeah, I think it's looking good. That's where I am with it.
Well, so then, Clive, let me just ask you this as the final question. As we sit here now in mid-July, which is too early to know, but I think worth taking stock.
Yep.
You look around at the business being done, it still feels to me like the group is City, Liverpool, and Arsenal. And I will say, I don't have a strong lean. If you told me any one of those three won the upcoming Premier League, I'd believe you. Here's what the betting odds currently think from a point total standpoint. Liverpool 79, City 78, Arsenal 78, Chelsea 70, Newcastle 64. And I know people are going to say, that's low, those teams are going to get more. That's not really how the betting odds things work. I think the more instructive thing there is the betting odds essentially reflect the reality that it's very close. For example, the current Premier League title odds from Pinnacle, based on their futures, are 27.7 for Liverpool, 27.2 for Arsenal, 22.7 for City, and 10.3 for Chelsea. So a clear break. And by the way, for people who might be saying, why are City kind of a little bit behind? I think those odds might price in a bit of a concern that City could have a deduction, right? So if you're a gambler, you price in all the information. Yeah. And so I think City would probably be more right there if there wasn't the risk to gamblers that they could face a punishment. But Clive, this is all just sort of my setup for saying I think that's the group, although some might look at the Club World Cup, which I think is dumb, and say Chelsea might be there. I don't agree. But do you have a strong lean on any of those three in the group, whether anyone else should be in it, and what your sort of early thoughts on the title chasers look like at this point?
I feel that's going to be the group, and I think Chelsea will be there from a player trading perspective because they got another 110 million quid in their bin out of nowhere that none of us saw coming a year and a bit ago, right? And they've now got it, and they're going to bank it, right? And that makes them powerful. They can use that money. I don't know how it's going to arrive in their bank accounts. Not that they care anyway. So they're going to be there. Their trading model is going to be. It's going to get closer and closer and closer. They buy a goalkeeper, some defenders that are actually not 13, particularly central defenders. They've got a chance to really do something. So I do think, and this is our third year in the Champions League, and we're slow. We can now flex our muscles. You know, we're now there. So we're starting to separate away from the other teams because, let's be honest, although we've had 3 years at the top end of the league, it's the third year in the Champions League, and that's the key thing. That's what makes us look at these signings. We couldn't do this before without significant loans from our owners. So we are in a really strong position, and I do think Liverpool, City and Arsenal are starting to really flex commercially and what they're doing around their ground revenue, what they do with the Champions League money. They're becoming very attractive because that is the one thing that players want. I know Spurs have taken a shortcut to the Champions League as well, but losing 22 times, that jump's going to be significant for them with extra games with all pressure in there. But the manager's smart. Right, let's see how they go at the start of the game, see what their draw looks like, the strength of their draw, how the manager against other competitions. If I'm Chelsea, I am chucking the domestic cups straight away, not bothered, because why should I do it? Because I've got my 100 million quid in my bin. I don't need to worry about the FA Cup and all them other trophies. Let me stay in that top four. Let me scare them in the league based on not playing that many games. Do you see what I mean? And so I think it's going to be an interesting year. Very interesting year. But I do think we're starting to separate, which is probably not going to please the rest of the league. But we're Arsenal people, right? We spent 7 years outside the Champions League and 14 years without reaching the quarterfinal. 3 years in, I'm happy to sort of reap the rewards at the moment and see what we can do going forward.
Paul, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm surprised in a way that the betting odds rate us that highly. I'm just used to getting faded, especially as we had, certainly outside the club, looking at last season, most people don't carry the context and make the air quotes excuses for us that are appropriate. So I'm pleasantly surprised that maybe it's our persistence at a high level. We're just, to you guys' point, we're like, without even checking the numbers, everybody goes, oh, well, it's going to be Liverpool, Arsenal and Man City, because it feels like now it's always Liverpool, Arsenal and Man City, which is a very positive, virtuous cycle for the club, for our confidence, for our ownership's commitment to investing in the club, everybody can feel it's still building, despite the fact that you could look at last year and say, oh, that's a drop. We kind of lost the plot a little bit, etc. Apparently, it's clear to everybody, even those outside the club, gasp that we're actually really good, that last year was an anomaly with context, and that we're going to go. These new players that come in are going to give the players we already had, the squad we already had that was really strong, the room to stay fit, to breathe, to stay energized throughout the season. And so you're getting a net there, a kind of a multiplier effect from bringing in this level of additional talent. And I assume the betting markets are seeing what we're doing in the summer, the players we're coming in, the level that they're adding, the number that we're adding in the areas we needed to. It's a vote of confidence to say Arsenal are making the moves they need to make and that they're serious. So, I'd ignore the betting markets if it didn't suit me, but it suits me, and I think they're right.
Me too.
To be right in there with Liverpool, given...
I love the honesty.
Consider the season Liverpool had last year. Consider the players they're bringing in. That the markets see us pretty much neck and neck.
Look, let's say it's Ekitike. I mean, this is why summer is a weird time. If you're just basing it on Wright and Ekitike and Gyokeres and Frimpong, and it's exciting. But losing Trent sucks. He was hugely important for them. They are massively dependent on Virgil van Dijk staying fit. I think even with Ekitike and Wright, they are still massively dependent on Mohamed Salah being elite, and he goes off to AFCON this year. There are risks for Liverpool that have nothing to do with what they're doing in the market. And I also think, by the way, their central midfield is basically Gravenberch pretending to be a 6 and pray. Otherwise, it's Endo. So, any team, you can look at them and peel them apart and say, are they as good as the transfer business they're doing? Maybe Chelsea have it right. Have 700 players, and then you always have players to use. And if everybody gets injured, you're still fine. You're the last man standing. There it is. That's the path.
Wait till we go back to Chelsea to buy another player, because we will.
You might as look. I'll say it this way: if Chelsea are going to hoard great young players to the point where they eventually have to lose them, go buy them. You know what I mean? Someone's going to buy Nico Jackson, and I'll tell you something: they should. He's a good player. He's a player worth the risk on. Now, I do love a chaotic XG underperformer. See, also Darwin Nunez. But I think it's also worth pointing out, by the way, there are a lot of people that are looking at like the Club World Cup, which everybody claimed they didn't care about, and now saying, oh, don't rule out Chelsea. Look, Chelsea beat a PSG team that finally ran cold, right? They counterattacked a PSG team that was on their 70th game. Here are the teams Chelsea played in the Club World Cup. LAFC, then they lost to Flamengo. Esperance Tunis, Benfica, Palmeiras, Fluminense. I mean, and now we're going to say they're going to win the Premier League? Arguably, they've gotten worse. Can I tell you something? Gittins might be worse than Madueke, and João Pedro might be worse than Nico Jackson. I can't talk about Chelsea. I'm done. We're stopped. We're done. We're stopping.
Stop.
We're stopping. Thank you, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Friday Night Clive tomorrow. The destination content on Patreon website. Friday Night Clive. AVP50 is your code to get half off. And Sunday Morning Paul is coming this week too. Thank you, Paul.
You might be on your own with that one.
And don't miss Tim's congratulate-a-thon on Friday. It's a 2-hour
24-hour
special.
Congratulate-a-thon. And actually, Sunday Morning Paul is perfect because we can actually live stream him making the pancakes. So it all works out. My name's Elliot Smith. We love you. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10. Transfer to know.